This is the 1% Doctor, a podcast that takes you beyond the white coat, diving into unique stories and passions that drive top doctors in their specialties. We explore their journeys, what fuels their passion, and the human side of medicine, interviewing the best in the field to uncover what truly sets them apart. This is the human behind the doctor. And now, here's your host, Adam Lamb.
Welcome back to the 1% Doctor podcast. I'm your host, Adam Lamb, and today we have an awesome guest, Dr. Jessyca. Cool background. She's doing a lot of really unique things in the place of healing and medicine. I'm excited to have her on the show. I think you're going to learn a lot, get a lot of value. So please welcome Dr. Jessyca to the show. Dr. Jessyca, good to see you.
Hi.
How
Thanks
are
for
you?
having me. I'm excited to finally be here.
Yeah, I know we had a couple tech issues the first time we tried doing this, but here we are. We prevailed. So share a little bit. I'm always interested to learn, what led down the path of medicine, helping people, healing, all that stuff for you. Where did it start?
Yeah. So really, truly at a young age, I was, like most kids, children, you put on a costume and an outfit and you're over here, helping people or thinking that you're helping people. And I came from a beautiful integrated background where my father's side, all in more of the conventional medicine, pharmacists, healers, in that capacity. And then on my mother's side, very much more Indigenous driven and from, the land up north in northern New Mexico, just cultivating and being part of the land and using the land nutrients and herbs and minerals to be part of what we call remedios. And so my grandmother she passed at 94, but I can tell you from lived experience with her, she had 30 to 50 people in and out of her door on any given day. And those people were coming for ritual, for healing, for speaking, talking. But the really cool part about it was she had been trained and she was a chef. And so, the kitchen is the hub of the home, right? It's where you collaborate and you listen and you tell stories and you really teach the next generation what living in a home and being healthy in a home is all about. And so as I was growing older and I was figuring out what to do with my life, my mom ended up passing very unexpectedly in my 20s. And so it's been about 20 years since she passed. And I was right in the middle of trying to figure out what my next step was in life, right? I always knew I wanted to go into medicine, but I didn't really know what. And after she passed, as interesting as it may sound to say this is an authentic truth, is I didn't know how to read her autopsy report.
Mm.
And
That's a
I
fluke.
it's shocking, but it's a truth. Like I was like, shame on me at this point in my life. I can't read it. I really don't know. And yeah, you can, decipher things, but the medical nomenclature, well, that was really a propelling musing effect for me to just get back into it. And 3 months later, I was enrolled back into school and I had already completed a bachelor's and done all this stuff. But now I'm here on this medical school journey. And I did really well in school and I first and second chair student in my biochemistry class. And that really made me, an opportunity to be a tutor. And so as I was tutoring and I was working really side by side, my biochemistry professor, he was part of the whole science team, kind of part of this whole CIA thing that was going on. And he had a pager at the time and he'd say, if I get called out of class, I'm zipping out on a helicopter. Tutors take over from here.
Wow.
Yeah. And so he came into class one day and he had this dissertation about this thick and he threw it on his desk and it just scattered everywhere. And he just started scribbling, on the chalkboard at the time. And he was putting together these complex molecular structures. And of course, I recognized one of them and it was a glucose sugar molecule. And then there was others that the class didn't recognize. And he's like, I have been vindicated. I have been researching for so long about the health consequences of artificial sweetener. And so I believe he was probably one of the first that really kind of, started to look at it in that way. However, when I went to him and he knew that I was on the medical school track, I was part of the societies and all of that. And my mentor came to me, she goes, and she was a beautiful mentor and I'm so grateful for her. She was like, you're exploring all these medical schools. I had been to like 70,000 miles back and forth, flying and traveling of interviews. So I already had, really was in it. And she goes, how have you ever heard about naturopathic medicine? And I know natural healing, but I just didn't know where the application and everything came together. So after research, I see, it's naturopathic medicine encompasses so many beautiful pillars of health. And we go through the Hippocratic Oath and it's do no harm. And it's all of the mainstays of allopathic or modern medicine. But the thing that I just drew on that was it was a sentient part of who I was paying attention, using the land, being conscious, having a vast array of knowledge and tools at your fingertips, from pharmaceuticals, prescriptive writings, when and if necessary, all the way to really being an expert in clinical nutrition. We get in naturopathic medical school, it's a 4-year accredited program. And medical school, you graduate with your doctorate in naturopathic medicine. And we have all of the beautiful biochemistries and bioclinical sciences. We do all the clinical rotations. It matches a traditional school in that sense. However, we go year round for 4 years and we really don't have much breaks because we also have to integrate things like the clinical nutrition. And I can say proudly and humbly, we are the only profession that has 90 clinical hours under our belt when we graduate from our program. And so, there's a lot being done at the federal level to get that now into traditional medical schools, and it's great and all of that. But I'm curious as to what curriculum and what hours are really going to be encompassed in that. And so I segue, but really what it was is that I saw, wow, I don't just get to learn evidence-based medicine, be in cadaver lab, do clinical rotations in some of the major hospitals like St. Joe's in Arizona, or Cancer Treatment Centers of America, or MD Anderson, which I loved, by the way. But I also get to be a healer in a different way, in the way that I saw my grandmother. And I just kind of stopped all other interviews and I said, what do I need to do to start to apply to naturopathic medical school? So I did. So going back to my biochemistry professor and how he fits into this, as he's going through this whole experience with his newfound understanding of artificial sweeteners, I thought, man, he's that person for me. He knows biochemistry, and he's such an expert in it, and he's layering on the understanding of what causes disease and what we should and shouldn't do. And so I went to him in full just excitement and faith that he would support me throughout my transition. And I said, can you write me another letter? It has to be to these schools now, and it has to be directed to the X, Y, and Z to apply to naturopathic medical school. And he took off his glasses and he set him down on the table and he goes, not a word, just kind of nodding at me. And I was like, okay. And he goes, He goes, after he told me, what his take was, that he didn't really understand it and he didn't really see it as a viable program in comparison to all the other schools I was applying to. And he goes, Jessyca, I just think you're better than that. And I didn't know how to take that. I thought, well, is that like a underhanded comment or accolade of him seeing what I'm capable of? But he really doesn't know my need and my want to heal in this way. And so he wrote me probably one of the most beautiful letters I've ever gotten, but he was reluctant. And that made me really step back and question what I was doing in the midst of this huge transition, right? And this huge commitment to make the transition. And I thought, you know what? I really am so grateful that I kept pursuing it and I didn't let probably one of the biggest influences in science and medicine that I had at the time tell me no.
Yeah.
And I find that to be so healing of my own and just courageous in my own right to know that I chose this and I am a guardian of medicine.
Hmm.
And that's really kind of where the story begins.
I love that. And it's interesting because you had some foresight that most practitioners, I'll say, don't, in the sense of the amount of docs I meet in their 40s that are like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like, I'm not happy. I don't feel like I'm serving anybody. I feel, like they've lost that vigor. And part of it, I think, is, and one of the hardest things I coach a ton of doctors and coached hundreds over the years. And one of the hardest parts is this path of seeking perfection and permission of like, I got to be the best. I got to be top of my class, that second chair. I got to be in these things. I got to have all these scores. And I need everyone to like me. And I need to get all these schools to say yes, or I need to get these hospitals to say yeah. Like, and that is a great recipe to have a super unhappy life, right? Of just seeking fulfillment from other people all this stuff. And sometimes it takes this 40s or 50s for them to go, I need to do something different. Right. And that's where maybe they come into my world and I'm helping them reframe, like, here's what I want to do. We reverse engineer how we build it. But it's beautiful to hear that. It's rare that I get to hear someone who's kind of had that intuition early and was like, I'm going to go. And that's a reality of life, is like, whether it's your parents or your peer group, like, they may not always agree. When you're going to go do something crazy, they're going to try to talk you out of it. And there's two sides of that, is because sometimes it reminds them of their fear, but also their lack of belief and faith of what's possible. And even on a personal note, like, my son just left 2 weeks ago today to go fly to Maine. We live in Texas, to go do door-to-door sales for the summer. While he just graduated high school. So the rest of his buddies are like just hanging out. And he was very scared to do it. And I was like, you should be a little scared. You should have some uncertainty. Like, you're going to do something big and different, right? And he's doing it and having tremendous success, loving it. But there's a part of just like, sometimes it's that little hump, that little leap we got to do that turns us into this opportunity and potentially living a lifetime of joy and fulfillment, which we're called to do. We're not called to hate our lives the entire time we're on this brief existence. And it's cool. That's a really interesting story. I'm curious to learn about some of this indigenous healing from your grandmother, that like maybe where that originated. And the reason I'll share that is my son and I did this really cool thing in northern Idaho. It was like a father-son, like, wilderness retreat. Like, you pull up middle of nowhere, like 90 miles from Canada, no cell service, phones, watches, computers, everything goes in the trunk. And we go off into the woods and we're sleeping in teepees and we're like learning how to, cut. You got like a pocket knife. That's it. And we're like cutting limbs down and making bow drills and creating fire and really connecting to the land is a big part of it. Like, connecting to the land, sleeping in the land, using the land and respecting the land and all this stuff. It was such a beautiful experience, especially for somebody who's like serial entrepreneur, 100 miles an hour. And it was like entrepreneur dads with their boys, and it's like a couple of days we're like talking about business, what we all do, like what we do here, like, and then all of a sudden you just disconnect and we're like, it was the most beautiful experience, to the point when that was when my son was like 14. When he turned 16, I sent him up there to do a boys' rite of passage. And it was like a indigenous path of like these boys, they blindfold them, they take them out into the woods. They're not allowed to talk. They don't eat for 3 days. They're separated and sleep separately, like a tarp, a wool blanket, a gallon of water, make your own, like hardcore. And I was explaining to him when he was sitting in my office before he left, and he was scared. And I'm like, dude, you got to remember who you are. I was like, 99.9% of people, including your dad, would be scared to death to go do what you did 2 years ago, 16. And who he became. And I mean, they're doing Sweat Lodge and they're doing like all these, just cool stuff that I don't know all about it, but I'm guessing is some sort of indigenous Native American kind of boys' rite of passage is what it was. Path. And it was just awesome. And I knew the facilitators, so I knew they'd be safe. But I mean, they're sleeping out in the middle of the woods by themselves. They're not allowed to talk. It was just a really, there's a level of toughness and personal confidence that I think he developed from that experience, which is so non-traditional from the helicopter parent with Life 360, just this kind of environment that we're in today, full of fear and scarcity. And so it was cool. And then it's just seeing him be able to, like, I saw it in his body, just as I'm reminding him of this, like this level of confidence, this change of fear and uncertainty to, yeah, I guess I'm going to be all right. Right. And stepping into it now, he's thriving and doing great. But it just, some of what you're talking about really made me think of that to my 18-year-old as he's figuring out what he wants to do with his life. And it's a beautiful thing.
I love it. It's, taking the time to pause and get back to nature cure. And that really is a foundational principle of naturopathic medicine, especially for the elders in the community in natural medicine and natural healing and health, is nature cure. What does that mean? That means what you just said. You're supporting not just a, a place or state, you're supporting this ecosystem that is the well-being of the manufacturing of your life. And it is really, truly, it can be so complicated. And I think in today's world, we make it so complex, but it really is the simple essence of the coherence and structure of nature, right? And grounding or earthing. People, it's now kind of, 10 years ago, nobody knew what the heck that was. It was something you don't talk about. But now, in part by social media and all the trends and everything and things that are supposed to be out there for whatever reason, earthing and grounding became really a thing, and everybody knows what that is. And it's just, the body being barefoot, right? We wear these rubber soles and plastic shoes, and how many of us don't get out into the actual dirt and earth and play in the dirt like we used to, or garden like we used to? And there's such a beautiful microbiome distribution and what you get from that soil, under your fingernails and what you're breathing in. And that living ecosystem microbiome supports our living system microbiome. And then when we're earthing and we're grounding and we're putting our bare feet on the earth and we're breathing and we're just taking time just to be in that presence, in that position, the ionic exchange that there's the science, right? That ion exchange, negative ion exchange, diffuses the nervous system. And we can see this in biofeedback and other rhythmic readings that we now have in science, that your body actually discharges, and that nervous system regulation becomes something so tangible and measurable. And that vagal nerve tone that really is the center conduit and point to innervating all of the organs of your body and being able to help you calm the breathing or calm the mind. It's really a miraculous thing to partake in and to put inside your healing house.
I've had doctors, traditional doctors that I coach, and they'll come to me they're in some heated thing. And I'm like, hey, dude, here, I'm going to have you do something crazy. They're like, what? And I'm like, take your shoes off, go outside, walk around for a little bit, and then just lay down and just breathe for like 10 minutes. So just give me 10 minutes. And in that 10 minutes, just keep telling yourself, like, whatever it is that's bothering you will pass. You'll be fine. And just focus on your breathing. And then it's like they call me back and they're like, forgot what they were even frustrated about. Like, call me back when you're done, just like 10, 15 minutes, go do it. And for some people too, it's a test, because I've had folks do that, even, or like get into some water, and I'm like, go do it for 15 minutes. And what I'm trying to show them typically is that they can't do it. Like, you got 15 minutes, but their inability to just come down, it's like it's an addiction. And so, like, to lay out in the grass, when's the last, lay out in the grass for 15 minutes and just breathe. Look up at the sky. It's awesome. And being able to do that, it's a test, because they'll come back, or I'll tell them 30 minutes and they last 3. Right. And part of that test is like, just breaking it down. Like, you can't even go just lay down because they're so wired, and trying to get them to see that. And it's a cool message. And I think there's too much woo woo talk into it. But like you said, we're seeing more like literally scientific proof of the ion exchange, or the grounding piece of, you articulate it way better than I can, but it's real and it works. And, how do we have more people do some of those things without feeling weird and making it should be more normal and natural?
Yeah. Well, that really has been an essence of my evolution in medicine, to tell you the truth, is bridging the divergent thinking of what medicine is, what it can be, and teaching others around the nation and doing state and federal health policy. That has shown me a lot. And that has opened perspective and windows into I need to stay center to what I know. And that's the passion for the medicine and the wisdom that I carry.
Mm-hmm.
And with that comes this evolution of being able to hopefully, and it's challenging, but bridge the gaps of medicine, because it shouldn't just all be science and evidence based for everything.
Well,
Now, use
well, the
that as a
reality is
tool.
it's an evidence base for how long. When we look at the drug to solve the symptom issue, that is infant compared to thousands and thousands of years of what worked in many situations. And it's like you said, how do we blend the things that we know that worked also with some new ways of doing things? I love peptides, for example, which is a bit more of a natural healing thing than like a drug that creates an event. And there's just certain different things. Regenerative medicine, I've been in that space for a long time. Like using umbilical cord tissue to help recreate tissue and heal areas in the body, and which is somewhere maybe in between what we're talking about. But yeah, you're right. It's interesting, and even like plant medicine, some of the plant medicine stuff. I'm not personally someone who's like, hey, I'm going to go do plant medicine, but I do. I've worked with a ton of people in that space from who facilitate it well, like ibogaine or ayahuasca or psilocybin, some of these things to help people massive, massive breakthrough from addiction, PTSD, and some of these other things. And like the science is profound. It's better than here's the pill. It'll go, like, just deal with it. And I think the conversation, to your point, it's being had at a federal level, and people like RFK and maybe the Maha movement, like some of this stuff, it should be a bipartisan conversation, because it's like, dude, we're talking about the poison in your food. We're talking about, my brother just went to Europe for the first time, and he's like, this reframed everything for me, because I realized all of the artificial sweeteners, or the high fructose corn syrup, all that. Like, he was kind of like, I've been talking about it for 20 years, but I'm as stupid. Like, we're very different. So like, he's not listening to his brother as much, and understanding like the food. I mean, dude, I'll go to Europe or Italy, and I'll eat like the last days on earth, and I lose 8 pounds, and I have tons of energy, and I feel great. And I was like, well, you're always walking in Europe. No, they drive cars too. It's not just because they walk. It's because their food is not poison. And I've been on the news multiple times discussing this, just with my background in this space as well. And so there's so much of it, I think, to be discussed. And how do we integrate it all into, there's not a lot of profit in laying in your grass. There's a lot more profit in antidepressant. And so, we have to understand that piece of it. But what are some other things that you think are really interesting, that you see a lot of success in on this natural healing side of the conversation?
As far as botanical medicine or just in
Anything,
general?
what pops in your mind? What are maybe some processes that you bring people through that you see a lot of success with? I'd like to hear some of that. And I'd like to unpack a lot of the things that you currently are doing and interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. So now in my evolution of my second practice, we had a rather robust, large healing center in northern New Mexico. And the last 4 years, it's been a transition 2 hours south of that. And so we closed that, sold that to another Indigenous healing group and nonprofit, and moved to Corrales, New Mexico, and found this property that needed major, major rehab. And so we were recreating, if you will, another wellness healing center within primary care mentality. So in the state of New Mexico, I'm a primary care practitioner. and my specialty is integrative functional and naturopathic medicine. And the reason I say that is because my specialty and what I've come to understand is really integrating this root cause foundation of prevention, right? And understanding that the body works as a whole. That's number one. And that we don't need to be using, in a lot of cases, the word idiopathic to describe a diagnosis or disease process. In my opinion, and this is just my opinion, that's a lazy way of kind of circumventing what is actually going on. Now, you'll have other naturopathic doctors or people in the functional medicine space that may say, well, we don't need a diagnosis. There are foundations to root cause that basically say the same thing. And what are those? Okay, cellular health in general, your mitochondrial health, the energy currency and ATP manufacturers of your cellular energy and what gives you that vitality, right? What your telomeres are doing on a longevity scale, how they're shortening, how we can get them to lengthen. Maybe there's some biohacking that is a new buzzword the last few years. All of those are levels to what we do as healers and paying attention. And so some naturopathic doctors, depending on how they practice, not all of us practice the same way. That goes for all practitioners, right? Worldwide, I would think. I love to practice with the science and spirit. And so that's why Desert Ritual House of Medicine, my new medical practice, is really connecting science and spirit. And what that means is it's getting to the essence of manifestation, whether you call that spirit, and then bridging it with the law of reversibility, which is science. And that really tells us if a physical fact can produce a psychological state, then a psychological state can possibly produce a physical fact. And so bridging, again, that cause and effect is really leaving everything on the table to explore. And so I typically tell my patients, you'll probably never find another practitioner like how I practice. And I say that humbly, but I also say that in profound gratitude and respect for the medicine because I pay attention. I'm kind of the home base. There's so many care team members out there when people have really strong chronic disease processes, maybe even cancer. And I don't replace anybody, but I become part of that team, part of that network. And I say, make me your home base because there's nothing healthier, happier, and more inviting to have a partner in health, especially when things get super duper complicated and everybody's wanting to tell you something. And then not only your practitioner team are wanting to tell you something, but your loving, supportive family and friends now, because we have resources out there that we didn't have a decade or so ago, even whatever people call Dr. Google or using AI. Everybody has their own perspective and understanding of what you should do in some chronic disease state. So I often get a very, very lonely and confused patient, and we have to break it down into biochemistry, into what I call a mind and body map. And so I'll take this chronic disease, if you will, maybe it's thyroid dysfunction or it's a, Hashimoto's or whatever autoimmune thyroid condition. And I ask, have you ever been taught what the thyroid looks like and how it has conversions for selenium and iodine and iron and how it utilizes it and how that all interplays into governing your hormones now that, older women with the cascade of hormones and all the things, and they 9 out of 10 times sit back and say no. So I draw it out for them. And I say, okay, is it a peripheral conversion response that's happening? Is it that we're not treating it right with whatever pharmaceutical and or we are having nutritional deficiencies? Maybe there's lack of that selenium and that iodine and that iron, or L-tyrosine comes from amino acid, protein conversion. Most women aren't taking in enough protein on a daily basis, especially as we age. And so once we start to fill those little holes that are leaking, that's when the body can start to kind of take a breath. All the while, we're not just looking at the physiologic response and the body physical component response. There is a beautiful, profound understanding and pause that needs to come into our conversation as partners in health, patient and doctor. And I say docere, Latin for doctor is teacher. And when we pause and we say, okay, I may get patients that come to me and they've tried everything and they want to continue to try everything. And so they're here at my desk. And I say, guided by my intuition, because I think that has always been a mainstay in my life. I can tell just within, meeting somebody within a few seconds or minutes where they register on my scale of preparedness for the next levels and pillars of health. And that's one thing that I think elite physicians or doctors pay attention to. And it's the unspokenness, it's the healing component, and it's taking the time to not rush the healing process. And when I listen and I sit with my patients, oftentimes their head, their mind wants this medicine. They want this healing. But the heart, the feeling, the actual feeling response component isn't quite there. And so my job also is to manufacture a beautiful patient teaching of what mind body medicine does and is, and how it is part of this framework of health and healing. And it really comes down to brain and heart coherence. And so it's synchronizing by frequency, brain frequency and heart frequency. That synchronistic effect is at 0.1 hertz. We can measure it. And that's really the body's resonance frequency. And so we can say, oh, it's 10 cycles, or 10 seconds per cycle or 6 breaths per minute. But really what it comes down to is we can repeatedly measure this by heart rate variability or HRV. And we know that there's physiologic responses when our brain and our heart are in balance. And so that's the first thing that I think, to kind of answer your question wholly, is that I need to understand that brain and heart coherence. And so I will use breathwork, scalar technology, make sure that the brain knows the language of the human, right? We speak it, we say it, we have language. But the frequency and the language of the heart is love. And I don't know about you, but I've started to ask people, and I surely ask my patients, but even if you're in a room of people or you're with friends and family, or even a stranger, I've asked them before, just in conversation, do you love yourself?
Well, I'll share something that just happened over the weekend. A client of mine, just killer in the business space. I actually work with him and his wife. Marriage is a little bumpy. And then a dog died and he's out of town and she's blame gaming him and he's reaching out to me like, what do I do? It's not like he could, if he was in town, it's not like he would have saved the dog's life. The dog had a freak, like heart attack and died. And so I'm like, can I reach out to her? I want to ask permission. He's like, yeah. So I reach out to her and she's, angry at him and sad and grieving. And to pull her out of that, I asked her a question. I said, let me ask you something. I said, what do you love to do? Because I wanted to shift. I wanted to see if she's been capable of articulating it. And she's like, it's just one of your trick questions, because like you said in the beginning, I can sit and talk with someone within 30 seconds. I can just start, and that's just a skill. Like you said, it's a spiritual thing, I believe, for me. But my goal was to try to help her let go of the moment of pain for a moment, to see if she's willing to go into a place of love. What do you love to do? I love my kid. No, that's not what you love to do. I was trying to get her to come to her identity, to that path of seeing if she actually loves herself, loves, and that's a key thing. And even, I'm a Christian guy, and I think a lot of Christians miss the Bible, but when the Bible says, love your neighbors, you love yourself. Well, if you hate yourself, how can you love your neighbor? right? And so there's a lot of that leading into loving ourselves is the first place where it starts. But I want to see that, like you said, this heart brain misalignment. I haven't ever really thought of it that way. I think more of like a mind mantra that aligns with action, right? Like you say you want this, but you do this, right? So there's a difference. You're not in alignment, which is something that I try to teach as well. And it was really interesting because how hard it was for her. She couldn't tell me something that she loves. And then she finally got to like, I love gardening. I love like she kind of got to this thing. And then this whole new version of her came about. She's like, can we talk? Hop on a call?" Yeah. And it's like she released. It was like, she's like, I want to be in pain. I want to be angry. It feels good to be mad because we get in, it's like crazy. We like almost, we want to be in this place, or we want to be in this place of fear and scarcity, or we want to be, but that's not aligning the heart and the mind. If you truly want to be loved, like you said, set free, aligned, we have to release that stuff. And that, again, that's spiritual stuff that you're not going to hear in a regular doctor's office. And I think, again, going back to the Bible, when Jesus heals the blind guy, he says, what do you want? He says, I want to see. He's like, all right, you're healed. And he was asking because he's like, what do you want? Because do you want pity? Do you want money? No, I want to see. Okay. You can see. Well, and have a good day. And there's a part of that, I think, especially in Christianity, is this spiritual side of healing. A lot of the religious people think it's all woo. And I'm like, no, dude, this is all this is all biblical stuff. And it's for me, when I'm a born again Christian 8 years in, I had all this science and biochemistry and molecular biology, all this background and learning and understanding this. And then I got to plug it in. I was like, oh my gosh, it's right here. And there's a part of being able to apply certain content to certain people groups that are closed-minded to many things, to say, it's like you talked about manifestation. I get in the Christian world, I say manifestation, they think it's some woo. I'm like, no, Jesus said, believe it as if you've already received it, feel it as if you're already healed. He already talks about it. Like it's all right there. Right. But in this world today, the secular world, we don't get that. It doesn't make sense, right? Like, and I was saying to my son, going back to him for a second, on when he's going door to door trying to get he's selling. And I was like, look, you know how you feel with the deal? He's like, yeah, feels awesome. I'm like, every driveway you walk up, I want you to feel that feeling. You can choose to feel that feeling. Feel that feeling as you walk up the driveway, right? And same thing with people that are maybe not well. As I'm like, look, I want you to remember what it feels like for you to go running again. Remember what it feels like to make love to your wife, like whatever it is, whatever the thing is. Like, yeah, feel that, man. Feel that, because you can recondition your body to invite that back in and get alignment again. And so, and maybe that's different than what you're saying, but that what you're saying is reminding me of some of these things. And it's so true. And it's all part of the healing process. It's all part of
Yeah.
that deeper connection.
No, you are spot on, actually. In, writings of Thomas, Scripture 106, that are in not the newer versions of some Bible texts, but it is the essence that you just spoke of, is say it and feel it
Hmm.
and receive it.
Yeah.
It's not saying be an observer to your life, and no disrespect, there's prayer, there's meditation, whatever you want to call it, right? That you can't just sit on the sidelines. And even that parable, right, where there's a man stuck and it's flooding and he's stuck and he's like praying and praying and praying to God, please help me, I'm stuck. And God sends a few different types of
Sends the boat, sends the helicopter. Yeah.
rescue.
Forgot to show up. Yeah.
And the way that this man was envisioning the help to show up didn't show up, but there were several versions of help. He just didn't take it. It's that same thing of, you can't just sit and meditate or pray on the sidelines. It's not about prayer and the language of the brain. It is the language of the heart to feel. You need to feel in order to have that abundance factor of your life. You need to feel it as if you've already received it, and get your state, your physiological state, in that sequence to be able to receive healing or medication or supplements or whatever we decide to do within the toolbox, so that the body's response is as optimized and homeostatic, balanced as it can be.
Yes.
And when we're operating out of fear and lack and loneliness and despair, we're rejecting that love. And I say, where love is blocked, everything falls apart. Marriages, health, everything. And so really, truly, we've created these technologies for creating ritual. And that's really the reason that Desert Ritual House of Medicine was born, is because a ritual becomes that mechanism for regulating your physiologic response. And it also helps the body shift towards efficiency, adaptability, regulation. It's different than just, conditioning. It's different than just having the consistency every single day. That is just a series of actions. Ritual is actually taking those actions and being conscious of.
Yeah. And I think even like you mentioned, prayer and meditation, I have a philosophy behind it that prayer is you petitioning to God. Meditation is actually shutting up long enough to listen and receive it, which a lot of people, I'm like, dude, meditate for 10 minutes. And they're like, meditation. That's like, it's so funny it's one thing I was thinking of as you're talking. The other thing, which is interesting, that I've started making almost ritualistic. We just redid our pool at our new house. I've been here for about 2 years. But our old house, we like 7 years had a pool. Probably went at 4 times. I hate it. But but the new pool, there's something about this new pool what I realized in this process, it's just getting in and being playful. Like I'm not trying to swim laps. Like I'm a physical, like, I'm competitive, goal oriented, it's super intense guy. But what I found is that, and I was measuring on my HRV, I'm watching my HRV, I'm paying attention to all these. I want the data, but I'm also like trying these different things to get my HRVs through the roof. My wife's like, what the heck's going on? Like, because I went from like a 48 to like a 79 consistently, just doing some of these different things. And one was like getting in the pool to just be, and I'm just being playful, and I do it sometimes with folks waking up in the morning and like, you don't need to go do an intense workout right away. Just like roll around on the floor, like just like wake up, kind of like love your body. It sounds silly, because the part it brings you, it's about reconnection. And I had a doc on here is really interesting. He's like a posture doctor. And one of the things he says, like first thing in the morning, of like just reconnecting to your body, is like stand like one leg up for 5 seconds and stand with another leg up. And like, he's like, feel what you feel. And I think you and I would understand that, but most people won't understand that. Just like, where you at, and realizing like just getting into the water and kind of doggy paddling around and just feeling the coolness on my skin, and it just, but actually being there, not thinking about like, what email do I got to return, what I got to do tomorrow, just being there and realizing like it totally is changing the physiology of my body. And I'm like relaxed, I'm ready for bed, I'm a lot more calm. And it's like, and then here's the deal, you don't necessarily need the activity all the time once you connect with the state that you're trying to. I don't need to go get in the pool necessarily. I could just think about how I feel when I'm in the pool, and I can just go, all right, I'm going to be like that right now. I'm just going to choose to be like that right now. And it, like, again, teaching that's nowhere in medical school, but that is everywhere, and what every single living human being needs in their life. And so I think it's cool. It's such a cool topic.
Yeah. Well, especially now, we're running a mile a minute. There's so much, coming in from every single facet of our lives. Responses on text and email and DMs and all the things that you say, busy your mind with. How do you calm your system? Period. Don't ask any more questions. How do you calm your system?
No.
And really learning how to invoke that childlike sense
Yes.
of wonder and imagination, because there's two different forms of imagination. There's the one that I'll call it creative imagination, right? I love to decorate. I love to paint. I see things in patterns and colors. And that's my outlet. That's what creates space for me and makes me whole. But then there's another part of imagination, and it is your soul's imagination and spirit's imagination. It's when you close your eyes, because people always ask, what is meditation, or how do you meditate? I close my eyes and 50 things pop up. And I said, meditation is the absence of your actual brain's thought and perceiving anything how you see it in the world with your eyes. It is silence of that, and it is imagination of things that really don't make sense to you because there's no human language to say it, but your body can respond, your nervous system can respond. And it's really the absence of everything. You go into this space. And I love how you said prayer is you're asking, you're talking to God, yours just saying, and you just keep, it's like a drill, right? And it can hold coherence, and it can hold profound depth, and you're honoring that. And that's a beautiful thing, as we know prayer to be. If we could silence the parts of our brain that take us to another space where we pray, but then we're saying, but it has to be this way, versus in meditation, it is, you are waiting for creator to speak to and through you,
Yeah.
and receiving what you need to receive. And so the quiet part of medicine, this stop, stillness, pause, reflect, be grateful. The gratitude meditation and the love meditation is what gets you there.
Yes.
And it's missing. And I'm a proponent for making sure that every single aspect, again, of health and wellness is within our community, and it is accessible and tangible to everybody. And so really that's where Desert Ritual House of Medicine, I see my concierge membership patients, I see fee for schedule patients, I do my regular clinical things. And then it really has shifted into, now I have and created the Healing House nonprofit by New Directions Institute. So we run as the Healing House Concepts nonprofit in New Mexico. And that's giving in a different way. That's having conversation in a different way so that people can access what we're talking about from A to Z, right? The walking in the door, needing to screen for strep or whatever you need to do, all the way to putting some beautiful therapeutics and homeopathy or botanical medicine, or completely helping them to calm and potentially reverse type 2 diabetes, and having the infrastructure, the sovereign type of infrastructure where insurance doesn't play a role, but we do scholarship-based programs for those that can't afford it. And we have different tiers to this whole nonprofit, which I'm really excited about. But, it's creating coherence, detoxing that chaos, being in the community, being in your home, knowing that you have a healing kitchen, because the kitchen can be an extension of the clinic,
Yes.
and creating this one healing house. And I say, people think, oh, healing house, you automatically think of a house. Well, yes, your house is your sanctuary, it can be your temple, it can be the best resource for you to rejuvenate and relax and detox and to be. But you have to create that structure and that foundation. But you also, again, going back to biblical understanding, your body is the temple. Your body was the first house, is the first house.
Yes.
And so that's why creating the Healing House concepts has been such a beautiful evolution of my existence in medicine and passion, because we're really taking this wellness industry concept that has been created over the last decade. And as of today, we're at 6.8 trillion annually is what we're spending on the wellness industry. And it's become 3 to 4 times bigger than pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah.
And
It's a major change, and it needs to.
And yeah, it needs to, and we're here for it. And I really do believe that I was put on this planet at this specific time to, again, be a guardian of this type of medicine, and to promote that mission that healthier people makes a healthier community. And you have to fulfill all those houses, the mental house, the physical house, and the social house. And through this whole nonprofit, we are clicking the mind into the healing with what we just discussed. We're understanding that your body is your temple, and that there's root cause care for everybody. And then the social house, it's bringing our remedios and our story nights and our abuelas and our elders that know the stewardship of the land, that know how to heal from Osha herb and how you apply it and what you do with it. And it's carrying the medicine forward for the next generations. And so we're also developing a curriculum in the schools so that we can have curriculum-based programs, so that it works in tandem with what the Healing House is and who I am as a naturopathic expert and teacher so that we can carry our young people into the world, because they're our greatest teachers, because what you just said, harness that childlike essence. And if you sit with that and you understand that children are probably some of our greatest resources and greatest teachers, then yeah, hope is I'm teaching these little chefs and these children how to cook really good in the kitchen so that they can go and teach their family. And we've missed that cycle of education. We just think, oh, the expert, oh, the doctor, oh, the teacher, oh, the whatever. No, the children are part of that equation. And
Well, the other aspect of that is like, oh, I come from a family long line of diabetes and obesity. No, it's not your bloodline. It's your habit line. And that when you can recreate habits and recreate a perspective of this is how you can cook and this is how you can live and this is how you can move and this is how you can, and then like you change stuff. And like as I hear you talking, what's interesting is I would say people that I would say you and I, there's probably plenty of things we could figure out that are very different about us. But what I also think is there's a ton of alignment, which is what I think we don't focus on enough in society, is where are we aligned versus where are we different. And what I hear too is that we're talking about how we bring the body, mind, body, and spirit into alignment. And when I bring my mind, body, and spirit into alignment, I can bring my home into an alignment. When I bring my home into an alignment, I can bring my community into alignment. When I bring my community into my alignment, this is where like when I zoom out, I look around, I'm like, why the hell are people at war? Why are people like, but if all of this alignment, this stuff is integrated into our human experience, none of that happened. We all care way too much about each other. We all care way too much about like just this common love for each other. And I think there's a part of that I think when I get in these kind of conversations, I feel again, like I said, there's probably you and I, if we're like, hey, let's see where we're different. We could probably figure out a lot of differences, but I think we could also just in this conversation, like, there's a lot of alignment, and I think the alignment is actually what helps bring things together versus the differences. And again, it goes to that part with medicine of like, we're the drug people, and it's like we're the earth people, and it's like, well, hold on, what are we actually trying to accomplish? Don't we want to help people? Okay, well, let's see, like you just described it. And that's why I love this conversation about what you do and your mission to help people and also facilitate a place for people to learn how to help themselves and integrating the things that you teach. And so will you share some areas that people can find you? We'll put all this stuff in the show notes too, but I'll let you share it. I don't know, social media, websites. I know you got a lot of stuff, but you want to share some of that stuff, Jessyca?
yeah, absolutely. So we're Corrales Collective, and that's basically an enclave in Corrales, New Mexico, right on the green belt of the Rio Grande. And we have this beautiful, functioning healing wellness center that encompasses Desert Ritual House of Medicine, the Healing House Concepts nonprofit that I just talked about, and then Casitas de Corrales. And the Casitas de Corrales, just to round out who we are and what we do, is a vacation and retreat rentals. And they're 1920s World War II bunkers. We have 5 of them, and my husband and I rehabbed them over the last few years into
Cool.
these beautiful little sweet Southwest adobe casitas. And all 5 of them are in legacy and remembrance of a fallen parent or grandparent that was, pinnacle part of who we are. And so people can book on Airbnb, Casitas de Corrales. We have casitasdecorrales.com. We love collaborating and hosting retreats with other like-minded professionals and wellness entrepreneurs. And so those can be available for that. We have a beautiful park that is just our private park on site, the 2.5 acres. And we call it Chandelier Park. And so we'll have Tai Chi or yoga or, anything going on out there, depending on what we need to support the retreat. And then, of course, Desert Ritual House of Medicine, that is my primary naturopathic medical practice. And you can find us on the website at desertritualhouseofmedicine.com. We are also on Instagram for Casitas de Corrales, Desert Ritual House of Medicine. And then I have another offshoot off of Desert Ritual House of Medicine, which is called Letters from the Desert Co. And that's really a healer's journey and poetic field notes about how and what I experience being a physician. And it's not specific to any patient, of course, but it's just my musings over time. And so I have that on Instagram. And then we have the New Directions Institute, and it's on Instagram as the Healing House Concepts. And that's our nonprofit. And we're also the healinghouseconcepts.com. And we also have a Zephy donation page link for the nonprofit as well, for anybody that would like to support us in our mission.
I love that. And I'm so grateful to have you for a guest. This is like a great way to end my week. I'm feeling.
Oh, I'm so glad it worked out well.
Yeah, it was awesome. And we'll make sure that all that information's in the show notes for everybody listening. We're grateful. I hope everyone that listened and made it here to the end with us today found a lot of value. I sure did. And that my goal is to help create value and help people open up their perspective of what's possible in medicine and in life. And so thank you. Been a wonderful guest, Jessyca, and I look forward to continue the relationship, speaking with you again. And thank you all for listening to the podcast. Please like and subscribe and share this episode with somebody who you think might change their life. Until next time, I'm Adam Lamb, your host of the 1% Doctor Podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the 1% Doctor. Please be sure to subscribe to the show where you're able to consume more podcasts, get more value, and learn more about doctors potentially just like you. Please tell a friend, review the show, and we'll see you in the next episode.